Hi everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight, the horror movie podcast here on the Melfuzz Podcast Network.
Yes.
Yes. That's what you're opening with. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, well, this is a horror movie podcast, and every week we talk about a horror movie, either from the past.
Or the present.
You know, it's funny, we've not actually done a movie from the past in a while now. We've had a lot of newer recent releases to talk about.
Yeah, it's been quite the year.
So far it has, yes. And I feel like
horror-based movies.
And I feel like the last 2 months, say, have been pretty strong.
Yeah.
Where not only has all been new releases, we've mostly liked them.
I'd say for the most part, yeah.
If not loved them in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
And we still have a new release to talk about today. We're going to talk about Cabin Fever. The not the original. the remake, which just recently was released. And yeah, so our streak of quality might be at an end. I'll say
Dear
that
Lord.
much. Now
Yeah.
we'll keep this spoiler free to begin with, as we do now. We want to give you a chance to get a sense of the movie. Although
I mean, if you're gonna watch it, don't.
my opinion would be don't care, just listen to us complain about it.
Yeah.
Instead, you'll have a greater time. That said, I do have one or two odd little positives to give it, which I'll get to.
Interesting.
Well, I say odd because they're kind of unintentionally positive.
Was one when the credits started rolling and it was over?
So yeah, this movie was garbage. Do you know what the funny thing is though? I've not seen the original Cabin Fever since probably it came out on DVD.
Yeah.
That's when I seen the movie, and I couldn't remember it all that well. I can remember the gist of it, so I wasn't sure at the start of this how close it was being.
Yeah.
But as it went on, I was remembering more of the original, and it felt like it was getting just closer and closer to it as it was going on. It turned out when I looked up afterwards to check how close it was, that it used the same script from the original movie with a couple of tweaks, and it was scene for scene basically.
I remember hearing that about it when it was first coming out, that they're saying they're remaking Cabin Fever, and I was like, oh, that's weird. And then they said they were using the same script, and I'm like, that's even weirder.
Yeah, because there's pointless remakes. There's a lot of pointless remakes. And then there's a scene for scene Cabin Fever remake barely 10 years after the original.
It makes no sense whatsoever. And it's not even I'm not a huge fan of the original Cabin Fever, but I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it as well. But when I saw it, I remember liking it. That was okay.
I thought it was okay at best. Honestly, watching this, I feel like the original's not much better. If anything, it's on par.
Well, I disagree with that. And basically, the big reason for me is that I feel like at least with the original, the characters were a lot more charming. I feel like they were still shitty horror movie characters. They were a lot better actors. The actors in this were shit.
Better actors, I will potentially agree with. I remember thinking there were awful people back then as well.
I mean, I'm not saying that they're good people, but I think they carry the movie a lot better.
I don't think they
these
do,
guys.
Honestly,
I think they do 100%.
I think
people in this were horrible, Peter. These are horrible actors.
No, they're terrible. They're terrible.
The people in the original movie were actually actors. These guys,
barely.
They were just people hanging out.
They were annoying college students all the same. They annoyed me just as much. The original annoyed me because it was going for this group of college kids, right? Trying to sort of harken back to the 80s. But I don't know what it is, but for some reason movies just can't do that anymore. They can't give me a batch of college or high school kids that are not necessarily great people, but are charming enough to watch. I don't think any movie's really done that for me in a long
it's
time.
Hard. No, it is.
And we'll get into a lot of the problems I had with this, specifically, when we get to spoilers, but they try so hard to make these like modern, like young people in references to things, and it just feels
Yeah.
so forced to the point where I actually think whoever touched this script up to modernize it for the 10 years. Like,
Yeah.
the original movie came out when I was 15, 16. And I'm still in my 20s. This is ridiculous. This should not have been remade already.
And it's like there are like I guess maybe like the closest thing I could think of like would be like the Psycho remake or something, which a lot of people I think agree that it's not that good, but
No, it's not.
I can at least see like why they did it. Like not necessarily like I
Yeah,
don't
no, like,
think that I should have done it,
no, but
but
it's shitty reasons, but you can see the reasons, right?
exactly
Because
like
you like, even if it wasn't like some people like, what part of the argument was that some people just won't watch stuff that's in black and white, and those people are
Right.
morons, right? And
Yeah.
they should just watch things in black and white. But right, even outside of that reason, there was 38 years
Yeah.
between those movies. At least at that point, it's so far gone that you want to do one set in the present era because you want it to feel like it's in modern day. I don't necessarily think you should remake movies based on that reason, but I at least get that
Yeah.
intention. I
It's
get why people want
understandable.
that, right? This is still the same era.
They like it's the same era. It's a movie that I don't think is that popular. Like I think, some people liked it when it came out, but it's not like Evil Dead style that has like a really big cult fan base or something. It's just like a movie that, sometimes people are like, "Oh yeah, no."
Also,
I
a
kinda
movie
like that.
which, by the way, showed exactly how you should reboot a horror series.
I-
Like,
Right.
almost perfect example. It's kind of scary how good that remake was. If you
Yeah.
can even call it a remake, I'd call it a reboot more than a remake.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But
And
this,
then it's like this, and then on top of all of that, it's not even it's like shittier than the original. Like at least if for some godforsaken reason it ended up being good, then you could be at least like, oh well, that's why they did it. But it's like, no, this is bad. This is really really bad.
it is the epitome of pointless. I have
Yeah.
never seen a more pointless film than a remake of Cabin Fever that's from the same script 10 years later, where someone has literally went to a couple of scenes and oh yeah, phones can take photos now and post on Facebook. We'll put one
Yeah.
reference to that in. Oh, video games are more of a mainstream thing. We'll put a reference to that in, and that's it. Like, that was basically the extent
Yeah.
of this movie. Like that is all this movie did. The rest of it is pretty much the same. At least as much as I can remember. I don't remember the original that well. There's a couple of things that I'll get to in the spoilers, but the only difference I can really say from the original
Yeah.
is that this one takes itself a bit more seriously. I feel like the original had more of a kind of black comedy vibe the whole way through, whereas
Yeah.
this one, as they're traveling up, like the score's more kind of horror based, and it feels a bit more like we're trying to make this a horror movie.
Uh,
And again, it's just the music really, and a couple of other small things that do that. But
yeah, and I think that.
and it's
Yeah,
not
no,
positive.
I
It's
can
not a
see that
negative
now.
either. It's just
Yeah.
it just is what it is. So,
Yeah, and I feel like there's stuff that like maybe is like I don't know that maybe they did that they thought like, oh well, this will be different, but it really doesn't change anything. Like the lady cop, like in the original, that was a guy,
It was a
but like
guy.
they're still doing like the same lines.
Oh
Though.
yeah, it's almost
So
the
it's
exact
like-
same scene. The only difference by having an attractive lady be the cop is that there's now this weird undertone of she wants to fuck him. Like,
Yeah.
that is like literally the only change that did to that scene is that now when she looks at him really funky and is like, oh party man, we're going to
Yeah.
party. He's like, all right, now it sounds like sex, whereas before it just sounded like some stoner trying to
Right. So
hang out with
like,
kids.
yeah, so like I don't know if like they thought like stuff like that would be like, oh well, like this is like a cool like change and like shake up from the original when
Also,
it's just like
The other change that did is the scene where she comes in to talk to him,
Yeah.
because she is just this sort of stereotypical attractive blonde, but she's dressed
Yeah.
up in like a deputy outfit, and the way she was talking about, oh, do you like party boy, and like I was like, she literally just walked off the set of a porno. Like, this feels like a character in a porno who
Yeah.
is about to take her clothes off. That's what it felt like. It was insanely bad. But I think we have given our spoiler-free thoughts enough at this point. You get the sense of where we're coming from. We're about to go through this
I forgot that we weren't even into spoilers yet.
fairly sequentially, right? So let's get into it. Okay, I will say a couple of minor positives. I want to just get out there.
I gotta hear these. What are they?
There's at least one scene they took out at the start to get us through it quicker. Because the original had a scene with them all meeting up at the college before they start driving. And I remember that being like a good few minutes. And I'm like, well, that shaved a bit of time off.
Okay.
They just start with them already driving. That's good. That's fine.
There's less of the movie, so yeah, you're right. That is a positive.
And there was a couple of moments where I unintentionally thought were hilarious. Now, the intended humour was terrible, right? And we'll get to that. Yeah. But see this scene where the disease guy's like coming at them in the car, and then he's in the car and he's out the car. Like, see that scene? The stupidity of the characters was so over the top that when they accidentally set him on fire, I started pissing myself laughing. Because how do you accidentally set someone on fire? That is the most insane thing. Like, well, first of all, one of them starts beating up the windshield with a baseball. I was like, what's that doing? All you're doing is wrecking the car. That's doing nothing. And then someone starts shooting at the windshield. I'm like, all you're doing... And then someone shoots the tyre.
Yeah.
That's your getaway vehicle. Why are you shooting... Oh, none of it made any sense to me. And then they accidentally set him on fire. And then they all just kind of stand there like, oh shit, we all just set him on fire.
Yeah.
And it's a team effort. One of them sprays him with gasoline, which, by the way, you don't spray someone with gasoline unless you're intending to set them on fire. So he clearly made a choice. He made a conscious choice to douse him in gasoline or oil or whatever it was, right? And then it's just the other guy dropping the whatever he was holding.
Yeah. You didn't remember.
I don't even remember. Something that ignited the fuel. I can't even remember, wasn't it? So I'll give it that. I got a good kick. See, at that point in the movie, I was actually kind of hopeful that the rest of it was going to get so bad it was going to be great. Like I was going to be like enjoying it in a goofy bad way, but the rest of it wasn't. It was all downhill from there.
Yeah, it never really reached like that height. Which is a shame because I can have fun with like a really shitty cheesy movie.
Oh wait, I thought of another positive that made me laugh.
Okay.
When this is way later. It's when the main blonde girl is like dying and she's like begging him to kill him. Oh yeah. And the guns run out of ammo.
Yeah.
So he thinks the humane way is to stab her on the head with a shovel. But so he does it. So he does it right, which is first of all, and then secondly, she's still not dead, so she's still sort of like, she's trying to say kill me, right? And then he's like, well, that didn't work. What's the most humane way I can now end her life? You know what? I'm going to douse her in gasoline and set her on fire, so she's going to burn alive. I'll be like, what the fuck? This guy's an psychopath. There's almost like a genuinely interesting movie about this guy secretly wanting to burn everyone alive. So that was my other positive.
Yeah, I don't know if they did they think that this was funny, because like you said with the first movie, it did feel like there was a kind of like that black comedy tone to that.
Well, I'll tell you who they thought was funny. They thought the nerd character. I'm doing air quotes for the audio people. The nerd character was funny. Who, I actually thought he was amusing from a writing standpoint. Not that none of the writing was funny. When I say amusing, what I mean is, it's amusing to see how much the nerd stereotype in movies has changed since the 80s. Like, if this was the 80s, he would be like a sort of dweeb who wouldn't want to talk to anyone, and now he's someone who talks too much and because they put in a couple of references to him to like in like video games. He's like, what, no Wi-Fi? I can't play Minecraft or Black Ops 2, right? Yeah. And I'm like, Minecraft's a fair reference to a point, but Black Ops 2 dates this movie so much. Like, that's already like 2 CODs ago.
And I feel like that was like,
since they've shot this movie, the new one came out, and that's now an outdated reference.
I feel like that was like the laziest attempt to try to modernize a movie that's like was already still modern.
Yeah, it's like he's a gamer who gets high while playing games. Like, that's his entire character, and it's like this is also a negative stereotype, but it's a completely different negative stereotype to what these stereotypes were in the 80s, which I thought was kind of amusing. But that was just me thinking outside of the movie, looking at it and analysing it, rather than the movie itself being entertaining. But yeah, let's get into the shite heap then. So he's an idiot. All the characters are idiots, but he's the biggest idiot perhaps, because he brings an assault rifle.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is still called a gun, despite what he says to the other character. He gets offended when the other character calls it a gun. He's like, no, this is an assault rifle. An assault rifle is a fucking gun.
It's like the least person you would ever want operating a gun is a guy that doesn't even know like the differences.
Yeah, even in the scene where he pulls it out, he accidentally fires it and almost hits the guy.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be a funny moment, and he lets him have the gun. He just says to him, keep that thing away from me. I'm like, no, if he almost shot you, you would immediately take the gun away from him and lock it up somewhere.
Yeah, like you would be like sweating bullets, probably like piss your pants, like your life would have flashed between like your eyes because he like literally like almost shot him in the head, and he's just kind of like, you know, it's almost like a sitcom, like wah wah kind of.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Thing. I think in the original, wasn't it something like just like a BB gun or like something like.
You know, I can't remember
because
this was one of the things that I was painfully trying to remember as I was watching it. Was this in the original? And I don't think it was exactly. I think it was. It may have been a bow and arrow or something like that.
I'm pretty sure he had a gun, but I think it was something like not like any type of like lethal gun, like a BB gun or like a paint gun or something like that.
Well, that's how you up the ante. You make it a real assault rifle.
Yeah, because who doesn't bring one of those when they go camping?
Yeah, I know. Oh, God. The girls, I'll call it the slutty one, the brunette, who is the slutty character, because she has the exact same stuff that the character in the original did. She, as soon as they get to the cabin, it's her and the boyfriend immediately have sex, and we see her naked, because why not? Like it just feels grotesque. It just feels like, oh, we have to have this, and then we see it again, obviously later on when she decides to have sex with the main guy, which also was a scene in the original.
Yeah, the end felt like pretty exploitative with her just like running out, just like naked with like blood and stuff.
Yeah, because I don't think that was in the original. Like I'm pretty sure, at least she ran out, but I think she had like a towel on or something. Like in this one, she's just full frontal naked, like covered in blood as she's walking out, and I'm like, who's even getting their socks, like their jollies to this? Really?
Yeah,
she's covered in blood. Like, okay, I'm sure there's some psychopath out there who's getting off in this, but it just felt really exploitative. You're right. It felt really, like her purpose in this movie was to show her tits.
Yeah,
that was all she was there for.
And I feel like sometimes you can kind of like do something kind of like funny with that cliche, like like I feel like in the Final Girls, when they had like that one character, like I thought like, oh, that's kind of like a funny, clever way to kind of, do that trope or whatever. But here it's just like, there's nothing clever or interesting about it. It's like, oh, like you're still in that mindset of like movies from like the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, it's really, really weird. So that's hard. The other character even has some weird sexual things where they put a point of having her tell how she used to use her mum's shower massager to masturbate, and I'm like, that's just, you're just putting in things to be titillating. That's all this is. Mm-hmm. You're killing time till the plot kicks in by having this kind of thing.
I hate that. Like,
I was gonna say, two of the male characters I could barely tell apart. They were just sort of two short-haired white guys who. One was the dick guy who fucks off halfway through. Another one was the supposedly nicer guy. But I could really tell them apart.
They're completely interchangeable. Which again, just going back to like my earlier point, like again, not it's hard because I don't want to make the first one sound like it was a masterpiece, but it's
really
just like
wasn't.
Compared to this, no, it definitely wasn't. But like compared to this, it's just like I feel like the characters like stood out more, and you know, at least had like some personality where like, yeah, these people again, it just felt like so
Actually, here's the change, right?
cut out, you
See
know?
the ending. At the
Yeah,
end of the original, the guy who like goes and gets drunk somewhere and isn't infected because he didn't drink any water, right?
yeah,
At the end of the first original, and I guess spoilers for the original Cabin Fever, but
mhm,
let's be honest, it's the exact same story and script as
yeah,
this movie, so we can't really avoid spoiling that.
yeah,
So he comes back to the house and he starts going on about how I survived, and then an entire SWAT team or team of cops like blast like 50 bullets into him, right? And it's
yeah,
meant to be like a sort of funny ending, almost, right? In this, they do two changes. One, he notices that his hands got the infection,
yeah,
right? And then it's just the one female cop that we've seen who shoots him.
yeah,
And I'm like, but that took away what made his death not even just funny, but it took away what made it notable.
right,
Was the fact that he wasn't infected. He was fine. He could, he was okay, and he gets
yeah,
shot anyway. And I feel
mhm.
like, but I don't know, like,
Yeah, it was, it's like at the at the very very least, if there was like there wasn't anything I enjoyed in this movie, but like
mm,
if there was something like where you were watching this and you're like, oh yeah, I like that ending death scene, or oh I like the scene when she's like shaving her legs or something, it's still done better in the original. So it's like even
yeah.
if there was something that someone liked, it's still a shittier version of
There was
an already
one.
shitty version.
I can't remember who it was, but there was one bit of brutality when the hillbillies showed up that I thought was at least cool from a gore perspective. I can't remember what it was now though,
Yeah.
which probably
And,
means it's not that great because I can't remember it. But
yeah. And like I mean the thing that's like kind of sucks too is that like yeah, you're dealing with like a virus, which I just don't. I'm not saying that there hasn't been interesting things with viruses, but if it's just like a virus that kills you and doesn't, turn you into a zombie or whatever, I don't feel it's not as interesting. Like, at least if they were remaking like a slasher flick or something, at least maybe you could get like cool, interesting kills in. But
yeah, in this they all just kind
it's
of are like,
you throw up some blood and someone shoots them, or lights them on
yeah.
fire.
Can we talk about the mid credit scene?
I don't even know if I watched it.
It cuts to the sister or whatever of like the main character looking at our photos on Facebook.
No, I didn't see that. As soon as
Oh
the
right.
credits hit, I was like,
Well,
I'm out of here.
let me tell you what happens in this scene, right? So
Okay.
the slutty girl was taking photos and selfies and stuff, and she was saying how it takes longer to upload, but they go up,
Oh
right?
right.
So she's looking, she's like, oh, she's smelling, she's like, oh, look at these photos, and she's looking through the photos, and it's like the selfie on outside, and then there's selfies of her and the guys and whatever, and right, and then it gets to some that are kind of grotesque,
Mm.
right, and it gets to somehow the phone must have went to the blonde girl at some point because it switches to like photos of her being all bloody, and I'm like, this is weird. Why did she take selfies of her when she was diseased, right? And then there's a photo of like the guy standing with the shovel about to put it in her face, and I'm like, wait a minute. She was not like we seen this scene. She was not holding a phone. No one took this photo. And even if she did, why would she take a photo if she's pleading for him to die? She can barely speak. Like,
And then uploads it.
and then uploads it.
That is insane. Wow, that is fucking bonkers.
So yeah, that's that.
Fucking Eli Roth in his mid-credit scene.
That's a good.
The worst.
He didn't even direct this. He got a writer credit because it was his script.
Yeah.
Like they based it on his script. They just like they probably did like a new draft of it and just changed a few things.
I feel
Um,
like that might be the only reason that this might have gotten made was I feel like maybe because of him and he was just like maybe someone like maybe this is more common than we think. Like people always approach people and they're like, no, don't I want you to direct. But he's such like a fucking idiot that he was like, you want to remake my movie? Yeah, yeah, that's cool. I
yeah,
don't know.
it's I don't know. It was a pretty dire experience. I mean, I don't want to say it was painful. Like, because I've seen worse. Like, I've seen movies that are just more painful to sit through from scene to scene.
Yeah.
This, if there's one like kind of vaguely positive thing I can say that it's not like, because all the positives I've said have all been unintentional funny things, right? If there's one kind of vague positive I can give this, is that it is like it's watchable. Like, it's easy to just like, it's not, it's not. What am I comparing it to? Well, that's a lot upset you, but it's not Sinister 2.
Oh yeah, I disagree with that 100%. I would actually like pay attention to Sinister 2. Like this, like I desperately wanted to stop it and do something else.
No,
Like,
I get that, but I just feel like this is like bad. This is, I mean, to get to ratings, right? I don't know. Diseased vaginas out of 10. Like, like I would give this like a 3 or 4, right?
people are playing music
Oh,
outside.
okay.
What's going on?
I thought you just really disagree with that rating.
Oh no, no.
I would give this
I just didn't know if you could pick it up or not.
I'd give this like a 4, 3.5, maybe a 3. I don't know. I really don't know where I'd want to settle on. What?
Oh no, I'm surprised that you went that high.
Went that high? All right. Well, you're in like a 2, 1.
I'm gonna give this a straight up 1.
Oh dear. Oh.
Yeah. Which, yeah, the only other one I ever gave was to Green Inferno. So.
Well, no, I will say this: I didn't hate this as much as Green Inferno.
Well, like I don't know, maybe this would have been enjoyable if we were watching it, like making fun of it or something. But
I think for me, like Green Inferno is really bad and has a lot of really weird things going on. Whereas this, to me, is just painfully bad average, if that makes sense. Whereas there's nothing unique about it. It's just kind of there. It just goes through the motions. It feels pointless, but it's not necessarily like.
Well, I understand that, but to me, that's probably like the worst thing that you can be. Like, I would rather have it be like crazy, over the top, bonkers. At least than just like kind of very bland, forgettable. And I think again the big thing that gets me, and we've already said it a million times, but it's just the same exact movie as a movie that from like 10 years ago. Like it's like there's
no I completely agree with all of that. I just like it doesn't. It at least looks and feels like a movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't feel like it was made for the Sci-Fi Channel, so I can't rate it lower than like a 3 or 4. Probably a 3. Probably go more with a 3. Like, there's a competence to the, I guess, the filmmaking.
Yeah.
That I can't rate it lower than that. For me to give this a 1, it has to be just like, it has to be Birdemic. It has to be The Room. It has to be insultingly terrible. And this to me is not insulting. It's just painfully pointless.
I don't know. See, I feel like it's insulting me because of its pointlessness. Like, its pointlessness is insulting to me.
I love how we're having an argument of how terrible this is.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, it's just terrible. You're like, no, it's the worst of the worst. And I'm like, it's not the worst of the worst. I've seen worse. It's just.
I mean,
this is the fight we're having right now, Tim.
At the very least, though, like, yeah, it's just like I've seen worse movies as well, but I've been able to find other stuff that I can enjoy about them. There's absolutely no enjoyment about it. The only enjoyment I might get from this is maybe that it elevates the first Cabin Fever for me. If it's
See, that's the weird thing. For me, it doesn't. For me, it just sort of drags it down further than I'd already had it in my memory. Because I'm watching this and going, yeah, I remember this happening. I remember this happening. Man, I don't really like the plot of this at all. Like, forgetting how they're doing it, I just don't really like this movie that much.
I mean, I just feel like if I'm not in a rush to watch the first Cabin Fever now, but
I don't want to watch
feel
either of them again, to be honest. Like. Typically, when we do like a remake or a sequel, we'll make a point of reviewing the original if we're not already. And I just didn't want to do it. Like, I couldn't be arsed. And I'm kind of glad we didn't, because if I'd watched the original right before this, and it's the same movie again with different actors, like, it would have been so mind-numbing. Like, I think the best thing this movie had going for it, for me, was that I could only kind of vaguely remember the original.
Yeah.
Like, that is the best thing it had going for it, is that I couldn't remember the original all that well.
I don't know. I'll stand by my rating of 1. I just
Okay, I think that's harsh, purely based on for me a one is Birdemic in the Room and Scary Movie 5.
I think though I think like when I rate stuff though, I think maybe you weight like technical aspects maybe a little more, and I might
Yeah, I do.
weight like enjoyment stuff more, because to me, I get much more enjoyment of watching like Birdemic or something.
Well,
Maybe
so
it,
do I. Don't get me
yeah.
wrong, but I'm still never going to rate Birdemic more than a one. Come on, it's not even sound mixed. Come on, to fuck Tim.
Well, I would probably, I don't know, like I'd be using a different scale
All right.
like to rate it, you know.
Well, I think we're
At the
done.
very at the very
I think we're done talking about this, Tim.
Okay. I just want
Make
one
your
last
point. Make
thing.
your point. But I think we're
Just
ready to
I
wrap
was
up.
just gonna say, if we're going like if we're using like a scale of all the movies we watch for this show, then I think it would fit like right on there, because like it would probably be like Green Inferno followed by this movie as honestly I think the worst movies we've watched for this show.
What did I? I think I give a 2 to Green Inferno.
Yeah, that probably sounds about right.
I think I give that a 2, which is probably. I think that's like that and Sinister 2 are like tied for me down there.
I think we
And
can
then,
like
and then a couple of notches up. I think The Gallows was obviously terrible as well.
that was bad.
Well, what did you prefer, this or The Gallows?
If I had to watch one again, I probably would watch The Gallows, to be honest.
Fair.
If
Fair.
and that's like, you know, gun pointed to my head, like, you know.
Yeah, you don't have to. You don't have to qualify it. It's A or B.
Yeah.
You have to pick A or B. You picked one.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to qualify it.
Um, I think we can easily say like if Mild Fuzz was going to have like some type of nemesis or enemy, it would be Eli Roth.
Well, it's funny you say that because by far the worst episode of any TV show we've ever done and almost cancelled was directed by Eli Roth. If you've never heard of South of Hell, it was a TV show for a network I'd never heard of. I think it was called WeTV.
Yeah, something like that.
And it was like Mina Savari, who you've not heard of since like American Pie 2. She's in this show about possession, and she's like possessed by a demon, and it is like absolute garbage. Like, not only is it the worst show we've ever reviewed on Almost Cancelled, I would legit say it is the worst single episode of TV I have ever seen in my life. It was terrible.
So I say he definitely gets the award for like the worst of Almost Cancelled. I'd say he gets the award for worst on Screams.
Yeah, well, because now, I mean, he didn't direct this, but he's still heavily attached. So
yeah,
I feel like
I think he might have produced it.
he got an executive producer credit, but I don't know if
Okay.
that's just because he owns the rights or because he
Yeah.
wrote the script or originally or whatever.
Well, at the very least, if he was never born, this movie wouldn't exist.
Exactly,
So-
exactly. That makes you plead for time travel so we can go back and kill him with
I
a
mean,
shovel.
God forbid if he ever like writes a comic book and makes a video game, that like we can just get like, you know, him across the board on all the podcasts.
Oh God, I hope he writes a comic one day just so we can blast them on one of the comic shows as well.
I
Oh,
mean,
dear.
the way DC picks some of its writers, I wouldn't be surprised if at some
Oh
point
God, don't say that, Tim. Don't say that. How dare you? How dare you? Don't give them ideas. They've got enough riffraff to contend with. All right. Well, I think that neatly wraps up our feelings on the Cabin Fever remake. So, by all means, if you've somehow managed to watch this yourself, let us know what you think in the comments below on YouTube, or you can, tweet at us at @mail_fuzz. I had to think about what I was going to say there. I don't know. It went away from me, Tim. What can I say?
Okay.
You can email us.
I would have helped you out,
mailfuzz@gmail.com.
but I had no idea this means tweet.
That means tweet. That means tweet. There you go.
That is actually pretty good.
The audio listeners have no idea what I'm doing right now, but I have come up with sign language for tweet. So you can do that. Obviously, follow us on Twitter and stuff. I'm at Wibble89. Tim's at Tim Vergulish. By the time this airs, we will be very close to the DC Comics podcast, Comics from the Multiverse, launching. That's launching at the end of May,
Nice.
along with DC Rebirth. So check that out. That'll be on the Mailfuzz TV channel on YouTube. And of course, iTunes and all that jazz for the audio versions. As always, guys, thanks for watching. keep watching scary movies. We'll see you next time.